Harold, how
Jill
are
Dasher,
ya?
how are you?
Excellent. Great to see your face
Good to
today.
see you. I can see my
Yeah.
face too, which is good. I think my
Yep, I
glasses
think we're here. Are we? Yeah, here we
I think we're
go.
good. I think we're good. Well, we've got a lot to get to today. We have another multifaceted lineup of guests, so I'm just going to get to it. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another HPN Global webcast. My name is Harold Batiste, and as always, I have my awesome partner in crime, Miss Jill Dasher. Good afternoon, Jill.
Hey, Harold. Hey, everyone. Thanks for
Uh,
joining us.
so, so today we're continuing our discussion around kickstarting this industry and getting back to the business of holding meetings and events. But today we also come to you with a heavy heart. Since we were last together, George Floyd was tragically murdered at the hand of police brutality, sparking outrage, fear, and pain throughout our country. And what's really sad is that this is just one case of what's been a long history of systemic injustice and discrimination. Um, we we have to do better. I think as a government and as a society, we have to do better and just treat everyone with some dignity and respect. Um, as the protests continue peacefully, and the justice process takes its course, I truly hope that this senseless loss is the tipping point, and the tipping point where we reset as a country with social transformation and unity prevails. And so change starts with unity. And I really believe that. And so I'll leave that kind of there for now. And I'll move us to our discussion today. And Jill,
Yeah.
in the midst of these unsettling times, the world is reopening, right?
It is.
Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
I do. Well, I'm in Arizona. We're wide open. Absolutely, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Uptick in leisure travel for sure. Had the great opportunity to spend time with clients this week who were here in Arizona doing a site visit for late August, early September large program. So things are moving ahead.
Yeah, and although let's be clear, it's a long way to go, right? But we are seeing more hotels reopen. We're seeing hotel occupancies increase. I mean, Las Vegas, that's the aircraft carrier destination, right? They reopened yesterday, after being completely shut down for I think it was almost 80 days, right? I also read an article yesterday that said meeting planners that are signing contracts for new business is up significantly. Obviously, that's the opposite of the trend we saw in April. And so I really believe that confidence in travel and safety is what we're seeing here at HPN, right?
Yeah.
Is increasing throughout the corporations, the planners,
Yes.
meeting attendees. And,
Right.
And I mean, wouldn't you agree, Jill?
Yeah, and Harold, I mean, where we're starting today is I really want to start with that safety and preparedness. So let's welcome our first guest. Let's bring in John Whitney, CEO of Emergency Concierge International. So we'll give him a minute. John Whitney, welcome to our conversation. Hey, so let me just fill in the blanks here. ECI is a really important strategic partner of HPN. You really help us and our valued clients weave that emergency planning and risk preparedness into our meeting management process so that we ensure that our attendees are protected, confident, and safe at every level. And you've done that for us for quite a few years. And we see that as important now more than ever. So first of all, thank you, John, for taking time to join us. We know you're quite busy, but we know that this information you're going to share, incredibly important. So I was lucky enough today to read your new ECI COVID medical contingency plan. Great information in there. What it really covers is that mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, really breaking it down to those buckets. But the first piece, John, that really struck me as so pertinent for right now is how to communicate to attendees during these uncertain times. So starting there, how do you as ECI gather, quantify, qualify, and share good, accurate information to your clients?
So one of the main things that we really focus on at ECI is, so we help clients build custom communications plans, crisis communications plans, as well as, emergency planning. One of the main areas that we focus on is whittling through the different facts and figures and recommendations that exist out there. So we always ensure that we go through reputable sources. We don't get into the hype. We don't get into the rumor mill of different things. What we do is really take the recommendations from areas like the CDC, local county health authorities, WHO, et cetera. And then we try to really whittle that down for our clients into actionable, real-time, and sustainable solutions for getting their meetings back online. When we talk a lot about, what specific areas have certain requirements, what areas have certain compliance regulations, and then how do we meet those in a sustainable fashion that still provides for a fun, exciting meeting and event. We focus on really balancing those two worlds of, let's provide safe meetings, let's provide actionable items, meet the requirements of the area, be safe, help our people be comfortable, but not being so sterile that the whole essence of a meeting and event is lost given this current situation. Right. We feel that communicating that to the attendees on the front end is the key component. So working with clients to develop their communication plan, we have a sample communication plan in our medical contingency version 2.0. To kind of, we very much be honest, be upfront, tell people what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and then you have clearly defined expectations, and then they can make the determination, whether or not they're ready to get back out in the world in that fashion. And I will point out, as you can see by the hotel artwork, that I'm out. I'm out and about. Safety and security is my life, and I'm out in the hotel right now traveling. Yeah. So doing it safe, doing it responsible, but it's good to get back out there.
Yeah. So John, first of all, thanks for joining us. ECI, you've really carved out a niche, I think, in the space for yourself and for the company. And we're thrilled to have you as a partner. I've talked about this on some of our last webcasts and you've heard me say kind of the word blind spots. What are some of the common, top 2 or 3 blind spots that when you go in and you consult with a group who has enlisted your services, what are the 2 or 3 blind spots that I guess you're seeing now? Because you're talking to meeting planners and companies and organizations now. What are the top 2 or 3 blind spots that you're seeing the most of?
I would say even let's just say pre-COVID, before that happened, the biggest blind spot we saw was the assumption that someone else had it covered. That really leads into duty of care issues, negligence issues, et cetera. When you assume that the venue will handle this, when you assume the hotel will handle this, we really try to emphasize with planners, it's your responsibility to provide a safe and secure event. So so taking that seriously and being mindful of that, and taking that responsibility on yourself to put the things into place. For example, a customized emergency plan, on-site crisis teams, et cetera. Additionally, what we see with folks is they downplay the risk of their event. Well, I only have 50 people. It's a safe thing. And we don't fear monger. We don't, promote panic, but you can have bad things happen at very small events. We always use the Gilroy Garlic Festival. That's a very unassuming, non-fear threatened event that had a significant active shooter event. So it just kind of as a contrast. Current COVID scenario, the biggest thing that we demonstrate a concern for, that we try to work clients through, is getting into a myopic focus. So now everyone's now thinking safety and security, but they're only thinking safety security in this narrow lane that is COVID focused. And when we call that candle moth syndrome, you're just simply focused on this one task. It makes you vulnerable to all the other multitudes of things that you didn't plan for and prepare. When we work with clients, we address the COVID thing because it has to be addressed right now. And it's hot on attendees' minds. It's when it gets back to the meeting. But then we also ensure we expand to cover all of the things that are potentially risks and threat vulnerabilities.
Right. And because we work together, John, we've been on site with meetings, and I think the training you've been able to do, for our planners has really brought us a different level of, comfort that when we do go on site, we've got things covered and we've thought through all the scenarios. And I think now more than ever, is why your services are so important, because, resources are stretched and
Yep.
people are struggling with how to plan a meeting. And, layer on top of that, now you need to add in a risk assessment and
Yes.
a plan. And there really isn't the bandwidth to do it. So for our people, who have tuned in today, who want this good information, I'd love to share. And can you just tell us what you're offering today that you're going to be able to share with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So we developed a medical contingency plan at the beginning of the COVID crisis when people were still on the shoulder, on the fence about going to meetings. We want to provide a tool that would help people continue to meet in a safe and sound environment. As we all know, past history, that kind of all went away. The meetings discontinued, unfortunately, at that time. Oftentimes, a necessary impact of given the situation that we were faced with. What we've done is we've taken that previous plan, we've completely revamped it into a version 2.0 that is the coming out of the other end of this. Like I said, whittling through the different expectations, the different requirements, et cetera, getting actual FAQs, the real times of should I require attendees to wear gloves? We answer that question. Should they wear masks? We answer that question.
Okay.
Temp checks, we answer that question very clearly, very concisely. That plan will be available in the next few days, and you can get that plan by emailing help@hpnglobal.com. We also offer consultation services, and that's free. That's free to anybody who wants it. So it's our opportunity to invest back in the meetings and events industry that's always been so good to us. We want to get people, get back going in there and doing it in a safe fashion. We also offer our customized emergency plans to cover that outside of the COVID specific, as well as our on-site crisis management teams, as well as our customized crisis communication plans. Excellent. If you go to info@emergencyconcierge.net, you can get contact with us there. One of the new things we added with COVID was a real-time scenario-based consultation service where we're essentially, if you don't want to spend the money to have us on site, we can contract with you to be available 24/7 for the duration of your event, a phone call away to walk you through a scenario. So you have an attendee that identifies with COVID symptoms, or you have an attendee has a heart attack or crisis, whatever it is. We're just a phone call away that, with our familiarity with the meetings and events industry, to help you walk through the process, not only in the response to that, but the recovery, the after action, the controlling the narrative of crisis communication, et cetera.
And thank you, John,
Absolutely.
because I know people are struggling where to get good, accurate information. And so let's just throw it out there. You can also reach out to us at help@hpnglobal.com, and we can get that plan out to any colleagues, peers, clients, anyone joining us today that would like that free plan. You can also email us at help@hpnglobal.com.
Yeah, so that's outstanding info, John. And it's great that you've got a complementary component to what you're offering to really give back to the industry. So that's great. So, John, again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to move on, but everyone, John's actually going to stick around for the Q&A part at the end. And
he's going to the green room for a while.
We'll put him in the green room. He's got his jelly beans and everything.
I got very high expectations. Very high expectations.
Enjoy.
So, and for everyone that's on, there is a chat box to the right. We will save some time at the end for Q&A, but I want to pivot to our next two guests here. And this plays into today's theme of getting granular on how to prepare for how to or what to expect for at your next meeting. It's the grit of the kind of meeting and planning of that next meeting that you have. And this is also in response to your feedback. This is what you've told us in your last Q&A. And feedback of wanting those, what we call internally, and Jill's going to laugh at this, are nuggets that we'd like to give you as takeaways. So with that said, please welcome our next two guests that are coming up. First, we have the general manager of the Fairmont Austin, Mr. Nenad Praporski. I'll make sure I'm saying that correct. We also have the director of convention and catering services at the Omni Orlando Resort at Championsgate, Miss Amanda Perales. Hey, thank you both for
Yeah.
joining us today. How are you?
We're doing great. Thank you for having us, Jill and Harold. Yeah.
Great. Nenad, I'm going to start with you. So the Fairmont Austin here. So you've just opened your doors after being closed for a period of time. And your hotel's a sizable group box, right? So what was the process like to get your doors ready to open, and how are you preparing for that first group?
Well, great question, Harold. And I might start off with saying it feels like this is a second opening in 2 years. We opened our doors to the world in 2018, and we had a second opening just this past Monday on June 1st. But we're doing our part in helping restart the economy by allowing our guests the opportunity to get away from the current situation and then have some R&R in our hotel. First and foremost, we owe it to our guests, and we owe it to all our employees who are coming back to work to have an opportunity to stay with us and work here, but at the same time to do so in a safe manner. And so leading up to the opening for the past several weeks, we had to rethink the whole process of how the guest experience looks like to still offer that luxury service that we've become known for, but to do so and deliver that service promise in a safe manner. So starting with our corporate office, they developed a new safety label. It's called All Safe in a close partnership with Bureau Veritas, which is one of the world's leading agencies on certification and testing. And so we have basically created very stringent standards when it comes to the entire experience, right? So I'll go a little bit into detail, right? So, we're talking about the arrival process. We're starting off with self-parking availability only. For the time being, we're not offering the valet service. The whole idea here, obviously, is to minimize guest contact.
Okay.
And when the guest arrives, you're greeted upon arrival to the hotel by our welcome ambassadors who will take your temperature, make sure it doesn't exceed the 99.6 Fahrenheit.
So I'm gonna stop you there. So you're actually taking temperature for all guests that are going to arrive.
We are indeed, and I must say, surprisingly so, all our guests have been very understanding and actually thankful that we are caring for their safety. So as the guest passes that first step, we have throughout the hotel actually custom-made floor decals where clearly allow the guests the opportunity to save distance, between themselves and other guests 6 feet apart. And then the front desk itself, we're doing a complete contactless check-in experience. We have, as many hotels have done recently as well, introduced the clear screens to limit that exposure.
Wow.
All our colleagues, or artists as we call them, are wearing face masks, both front of house, back of house, and then every person entering the building, even in the back of house area, as far as the colleagues go through the same process. So safety first. I think that's the name of the day, or I think the word of the month, really, and it has to be that way.
Yeah.
We've really changed a lot of ways of how we service the guest rooms. So we offer occupied guest room service, but upon request only. Again, in the spirit of minimizing that guest contact, we have removed a lot of high touch points from the room and have them available upon request. In the industry, calling it the quote unquote decluttering of the room, right? So anything that is not essential, deemed not essential for the guest stay, we have removed. We've introduced a lot of digital technologies in the room.
Yeah.
And then a lot of items, or all those items, are available upon request, but just for the guest safety and kind of peace of mind, we wanted to really minimize the ability to have the guest, touch the same items. The one really neat thing we just started doing, and this is for the whole company, is a 48-hour resting period between the two guest stays. And that, obviously it goes without saying, the cleanliness standards and an increased amount of cleaning and product we use are all certified. But having that as a safety net in a way to have the room rest for 48 hours is that added step that we decided to do, and so far it's been great.
So when you say 48-hour, meaning if a guest checks out of a room, 3:36, and the front office then puts that room in kind of a vacant, dirty, or an out of service for a 48-hour period before they check someone else in that room.
before a housekeeping team goes in to clean it, and then before the guest actually checks in or rechecks in that room. This is a measure we're starting off. Obviously, down the road, as it's deemed more safe to look at that standard, we will do so. But to start off, this is a step we're all committed to, and I think a great level of assurance to our guests to feel safe.
Interesting. Amanda, I want to pivot to you here a bit. And first of all, thank you for joining us. So we're gonna bring you in from the great city of Orlando, and we're big fans, obviously, of Fairmont and our friends in Austin, but definitely big fans of Omni and our friends there at Championsgate. Yeah. You've just reopened too. I think I even gave you a shout out last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, going into Memorial Day weekend. Was that your first weekend there?
It was our first weekend. We reopened Thursday, May 21st. So right before the Memorial Day weekend. And it was so great to welcome guests back to the resort and see all their smiles and that they were, happy to be out and, just enjoying getting out of their house and enjoying our pools and all of our recreation areas. We were also really blessed that our first day open, we also had our first meeting. So it wasn't a large meeting, but, we had our first board meeting. So we were so excited that we, kind of dipped our toe in the water and really got back into that playing field. We have 250,000 square feet of beautiful meeting space here. And it really is so important for us to be able to continue to execute meetings safely. So we've really taken a lot of time to think about all the different steps that go into that process to make sure that everyone is, safe and comfortable, and we can continue on with meeting in person. So there's quite a few different, areas that we focused on in order to welcome back our meeting guests. We also have already executed our first wedding as well. So we're really getting right back in there and excited to do so.
So you had weddings. You actually had a bride and a groom and
we had a bride and a groom and an officiant and a photographer.
And they had guests. And there were guests at the wedding.
We did. Again, it wasn't a large wedding. It was only 20 people, but it was great for us to have both of those happen within the first 10 days of opening. And as we continue in the next few weeks, we'll see more and more of those events start to happen and get to execute some of these plans that we've already put in place. So it's really encouraging to start to see those things starting to happen again.
Yeah. Right. So for those of you that don't know, I'm a former conference service manager. That's where, I really cut my teeth in this industry. So all my notes from, my conversations with Amanda and so excited to have this because, you've had those experiences and you've learned from those probably. And most of the questions and comments we've had over the last Facebook Live chats we've had have come really around the things that you can speak to that you've had to plan for, implement, and probably even adjust again. So most of those questions were around food and beverage requirements. Are there buffets? Are there not buffets? Are you serving alcohol? How do you serve alcohol? What does space capacity start with? So, I have so many notes, so I apologize to everyone because I've been so excited to have this conversation. One of the things that we talked about was updated seating, and you shared some really great information. I think it's strict, moderate, and standard seating and hybrid seating formats. So can you talk about that? I found that fascinating.
Absolutely. As a brand, we realize that this isn't going to be black and white. We're not going to jump from, our 6-foot distancing right back into our standard sets. So we thought there needed to be some steps along the way. So we created new capacity charts that include strict, which is what we'll be following for the next few weeks, and then our moderate seating and our standard seating. And then even another step further from that is to consider hybrid sets. So that would mean that the front of the room might be set in a moderate seating, and then the back of the room would be in a strict seating. So guests that feel a little bit more comfortable might go to the front of the room where there might be, 5 or 6 guests at a table, or it might be set 2 per 6, but the back of the room is going to stick to that 1 per 6 model, maybe 3 guests per round, so that you're really kind of covering all the attendee needs.
And different comfort levels, because we've said that everyone has a different comfort level, but you really thought through how to make the experience what the attendee needs. So that's fascinating. The other one we've talked a lot about, we get a lot of questions, serving alcohol. How are bars managed? How do you serve alcohol? That's come up quite a few times. And you've thought through that as well.
Yeah. So one of the areas, kind of was just really timely with everything that's happening right now. There's an industry that's really, getting itself out there, and that's with canned cocktails. So there are products out there now that you can get a Moscow Mule, you can get a Bellini, a Whiskey Smash, and they're really quality products. So you can still pass your cocktails during a cocktail hour, and your guests are still going to feel safe that, nothing has touched their drink. And they can still enjoy themselves. So that's really one of the items that we've looked at, partnering with different vendors to make sure we can get those products. And we're already starting to do that in our pool areas. And that's how we knew about it, but it makes a lot more sense in the event arena now to start bringing those products in.
So you brought up past drinks. Let's talk about past appetizers. Let's talk about it, because there's a lot of questions around that and buffets. So can you touch on that?
Absolutely. Yes, I've answered that question many times. So what we are sourcing here are individual vessels. So whether it's like bamboo box or bamboo boat, but items that would be individually packaged so that they can still be passed. But guests feel comfortable that, no one else has touched their item versus, just picking it up with a cocktail napkin. That's obviously not going to be conducive in this current environment. Buffets, we are still allowing. There are just some events that it doesn't make realistic sense to do plated. So we are still allowing buffets, but we're going to have our staff serving the buffets. No attendees are going to touch the serving utensils, and we are going to have the acrylic shields up so that everyone, both our staff and the guests, are all protected. So, we're still giving that option if the event needs it. And then, of course, encouraging other plated options and boxed options as well.
So a lot of creativity and thoughtfulness goes into what you're going to do. One of the things that we talked about this week is you shared great information really about that planning process and a few unique things that you're implementing. If people can't come to do a site visit, can you just touch on a couple things that you are doing on your property to really make the experience of planning, like you're there, or even the food tastings, how you're handling that?
Absolutely. So I think we're all experts at Zoom calls and probably doing somewhat of virtual sites at this point, but we wanted to take that a step further and really make sure that our planners get the same experience as they would if they came on site to do a pre-planning. So we've created lookbooks of all of our menu items. I think especially with our repeat customers, they have a great level of confidence in our food and beverage offerings already. So they know it's going to taste good, but they might want to see what it visually is going to look like on the plate. So we're in the process of photographing all of the items on our banquet menu so that we can share those with our customers, and they can, just to visually see what it's going to look like if they can't be here for a tasting. Now, if they're a new customer and they really do want to try the food, what we're looking at doing is partnering with our sister hotels. So, maybe we have a customer that's located in Boston and we have our great Parker House property there. So we'll have them come to Parker House, do a tasting there. We'll share our recipes, and so they still get the same experience without traveling to us. And we can do that in the reverse as well. If they have a coworker that is based out of here in Orlando and they trust their taste buds, they can send them to us, and we'll have them do the tasting here. And again, we can still, of course, include like that Zoom component or whatever platform we want to use so that they can see the actual food during the tasting and get the visual aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's just so clever to come up with so many different options to make it readily available to the planners. So some of the other things that we've covered really are about the meetings you've already done. And I know they're few at this point. But one of the ones you touched on that I think is fascinating is a corporate, client that took a 2-day program, stretched it out over 4 days, and really did some interesting things, and how you came up with an evening event that's socially distanced but really creative. Can you talk about that?
Of course. So we do have a corporate customer. Their events in July originally was supposed to be close to 400 people, and they're just not quite ready to be comfortable with having all 400 folks in one room at a time. So rather than making it a 2-day event, we've extended it to a 4-day event. So they'll have 2 waves, and so they'll have no more than 200 guests at one time. It allows them to space out all of their meetings, make sure we're using all the appropriate social distancing, but they're still all going to be getting that same experience. And along with that, they do have an evening event that we partnered together to create using individual picnic baskets. So it's going to be outside on our lawn, where I think there's a extra level of confidence when anytime people are outside right now. So they'll all have their own picnic blanket. So they'll ensure that they're 6 feet apart. They're going to have their picnic basket, and then they can watch a movie on the lawn and just kind of enjoy being outside and being together. But have all their food will be individually packaged, but not really feel like it's a box lunch, because it's truly a picnic basket.
I love this. I really do love this idea. And I think Harold's going to come back and join us. Anything else you wanted to cover, Amanda? And I know that today we want to make sure we get to everybody's questions, because we have some great brain trust here, today with us. But is there anything else that you're excited about that you want to share that you're doing at your property?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other area we get a lot of questions on is exhibit halls in general, because a lot of times they're really the bread and butter of a lot of events, and without them, the event doesn't happen. And so I just want to, kind of remind people that exhibit halls in themselves really kind of create that social distancing. They have that 8x10 space, that 10x10 space, that 10x20 space, whatever your exhibit hall looks like. Those bones already exist. It's just about managing the traffic flow and the amount of people that are in that room at one time. So there's lots of ways that you can stagger attendees. They sign up for certain times, have your actual exhibitors rotate, manage the aisles to be certain directions. Exhibit halls don't have to go away. They're definitely something that you can tweak to still work in this post-COVID era.
Right.
Yeah, I want to bring Nenad back, but so Amanda, it just sounds like you have put a ton of thought into how to execute meetings. So I think it's safe to say that you're ready to host a meeting, whether it comes, 2 months from now, or whether they want to come next week.
Right.
We are absolutely ready. Yes. Yeah. So we had a small meeting yesterday. We got some other customers that are checking in on Sunday. So okay. We're ready.
Nenad, I want to talk about your hotel for a moment here. Just for the benefit of everyone, can you just remind everyone how many rooms and how much space you have there?
Sure, Harold. So we're the largest hotel in Austin, 1,048 guest rooms, and we do a lot of group business. In good old times, a few months ago, about 65 to 70% of all our business was actually groups. Okay. We have close to 140,000 square feet of space, meeting space, indoor and outdoor.
Great. So, you had to welcome. You're a general manager, so you have how many associates or how many employees do you have there?
Roughly. At full staffing, right before the pandemic, we were just over 800 total. Okay. And then we're now slowly phasing in colleagues as they come back from some time off, and reintroducing them back to the property as we grow and ramp up in occupancy.
Yeah, so this is the first time we've had a general manager on. So yeah. I'm just curious, like, what's your messaging to your associates? Day one. Was that in the email that you sent out, or is that in a ballroom or some setting where you addressed everyone and welcomed them back? And how do you prepare them in this kind of I hate saying the new norm, but in this kind of new world we're in?
It's a great question. I mean, throughout the past couple of months, we stayed in close contact with them and really all of the above. So we had email communication, regular base. We've done, as I call them, town halls with the team at least once every 3 to 4 weeks over the past couple of months. And Zoom technology, little did we know a few months ago that became the new norm, but we've utilized it to our benefit to keep all the colleagues informed and kind of appraised of the new timelines. And then as they started onboarding and being reintroduced back to the building, a huge amount of new training, right? So it's no longer about how you technically conduct a check-in or introducing a new concept, but it just more revolving around the new standard of safety and cleanliness. The pre-shifting and the training before the opening and throughout the opening this week as well. Absolutely.
And I'm sure that I'm assuming that for both properties, for Amanda and Nenad, as you've reopened, you've probably learned things. Things that you've implemented, and then in real time, you might have to adapt those because you see whether they work or don't work in this environment. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely been a learning experience. Yes. You know, it's new for everyone. If you've been at home for the last couple of weeks and this might be your first time out, you know, actually we talked about social distancing, but you haven't actually practiced it. So what we learned is that we had to kind of educate our guests as they arrived on Memorial Day weekend and kind of remind them and make sure that, you know, our front desk agents were also communicating that to them when they were arriving. You know, we originally started with just moving all of our pools on our pool deck, or pool chairs on our pool deck to be socially distanced. And now we've had to look at actually putting signage on certain chairs because oftentimes, you know, they would just move the chairs back. So we've definitely learned a few things along the way and we'll continue to learn.
And Jill, I will add to that, just like Amanda said, it is a learning process, right? We're putting our best foot forward leading up to our reopening this week. But we have to learn and listen as we go and adapt, right? That will be key to the next few months of how we handle business and how we offer that same experience to our guests. This is our first big weekend actually of opening of having a larger than when we opened the hotel crowd in terms of occupancy goes. So what we set forward as the plan for our pool deck operation for the first 3 days was tested. And now we're ready to be all hands on deck today and tomorrow and put it to test. We also have a first wedding tomorrow as well.
Oh,
so it's exciting. But next week, we're doing another one of those town halls where we'll have close to 200 of our own employees in a ballroom and kind of do a test run. So everything we talked about in terms of spacing, chair positioning, setup, as well as web conferencing, those employees who are still not back on property, kind of putting it all together and then actually taking a video of it that we can then share with our clients and see it in action.
Wow.
Hugely beneficial
So
for us.
I love that. No,
Yeah.
that's the first I've heard of that as well, is that, you know, instead of just playing with different banquet sets, right, you're actually putting people in those that your employees,
right.
And then you can send that, you know, I mean, there's obviously, you know, you've got some of the virtual technology like all seated that we talked about last week. And then that's actually real time technology. So that's outstanding. So Nenad, you know, I've been to Austin a few times, and you know, it's a fun town. There's a lot to do outside of the hotel. Can you tell us a little bit about how the town and the city of Austin? I mean, that's a big driver of why people come to Austin, not just your hotel. The town, so much energy and a lot to do outside the hotel.
Sure, it's a big draw to our client base, whether they're coming here for leisure or for group, and a lot of our corporate clients are choosing to allow some time off to actually see the city because it has so much to offer. So it slowly started reopening. Our governor was one of the first ones who made it a point to in stages open the state of Texas, and you can see more and more now restaurants and bars kind of adding content to the city. But obviously the big events coming up in the fall season will really determine you know, how much draw we will have to the city. So UT, University of Texas here in Austin is the biggest campus, and obviously with the football season, if it happens and happens safely, that will be a big draw to the city. Then we have right after that, we have a couple of big moto events. First, the MotoGP in the fall that was moved from the spring, followed by Formula One. And obviously these are all kind of waiting to see if it happens, but we have a scheduled call with the mayor of Austin next week, probably with a few of our hoteliers here to talk about it, just to see the outlook on Q3 and Q4 and the plan for those big events to help us understand how we best prepare. And as we just talked about, maybe tweak some of the systems that we currently have in place.
Yeah, that's great. And then Amanda, let's talk Orlando. You know, the big news out of Orlando, obviously, is Disney, right? They're reopening.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everyone was anticipating that date and it's finally arrived. They'll be open in July, and, you know, just this week, Universal opened. So they're already open and welcoming guests. I know I have a few friends that have already been. SeaWorld's opening next week. Legoland's open. So, you know, all the big attractions here are now open. So, you know, Orlando as a city, we depend so much on just tourism, and, you know, we have some really great support in those areas, and, you know, we're ready. So we just want to start welcoming all those guests back to us. And we are starting to see them come. You know, it's starting more so with the Southeast, like the local drive market. But we're all very hopeful that with Disney's announcement that we're going to start to see them coming from farther away.
Yeah, great.
Harold, we got some questions.
We've got questions coming in.
Good questions, all. Should we start firing some off?
Let's start firing some questions off here, some rapid fire here. And so, Nenad, I tell you what, Brian, let's bring them both back in because I want to have Nenad and
a lot about temperature checks and
Amanda both kind of in here. But Nenad, for the temperature check, so that's gotten a ton of attention here on with our guests and our attendees on the cast today. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of two-pronged question here, and I'll just let you run with it. The first part of that question is, are you testing everyone? So if I'm a guest and I come in, I check in, then I need to go out to dinner, and I get tested again. So that's the first part. The second part is, what's your process for if someone actually has a temperature above whatever the threshold is?
Sure. So the threshold is 99.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which we're following the safety guidelines, obviously set by the agencies. We take the temperature upon arrival, regardless of whether you've been here in a building or just returning from stepping off for the evening. And the main reason is obviously things change, especially as you as a guest or an employee come in contact with more people and staying for a few nights potentially. I think it's just the safest way to do it, and just everybody who goes through our doors will get that new check. So if they pass it, obviously then they proceed on to the room or an area of where they wanted to go in the hotel. If not, we have what we call a separate area for the secondary check, right? So we would allow the guests to make themselves more comfortable for a few minutes, and then we would take it again, right? So I guess the ultimate question is what happens if they don't pass that threshold temperature or test above the second time around. So we're completely open to give the guests the choice. So if they wish to, say, not risk or stay, or even perhaps they were not aware they had a fever for whatever reason, they will have an ability to either depart and we would fully refund the reservation, no questions asked. If they certainly decide to stay with us, we would designate a floor where guests who haven't passed the temperature will still stay with us. We would politely ask them to self-quarantine either during the stay or until they decide to get tested and then show us that to get tested negative for COVID.
An aggressive approach, and it's one quite honestly I like. And I'm going to throw another question out here is, and this is for both you, Amanda, you as well. What's your thought around elevators? Is there any process around how we're going to get from floor to floor and social distancing?
We have signage in front of all of our elevators, as well as spots marked inside the elevator. So we're limiting elevators to only 4 guests per person, unless you live in the same household. So of course, if you have a family of 6, that's fine for you to get on the elevator. But if you're individual business travelers, we're limiting those elevators to 4 per person. And we're also sanitizing all those elevator buttons every hour. So of course, our public space team has been ramped up tenfold, but they're touching them and sanitizing them every hour.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we've gotten a couple of questions. How are you communicating this to your guests? Are they getting pre-arrival information about all of these things, that there will be a temperature check or there's social distancing in place?
Absolutely. So for Fairmont Austin here, Jill, we're doing the pre-arrival communication. Upon arrival, we reiterate these points that I just talked about via a arrival letter that kind of outlines all those steps. And then on top of that, for all our viewers today, we have 2 platforms that they can reference as well, which is the allstaywell.com platform that has all the generic practices. In addition to that, specifically to our meetings, we created a website called allmeetwell.com that outlines all these steps specifically to the meetings. So between those 3 mediums, I think you cannot over-communicate in this situation. To really set the guest expectations, to have them feel comfortable, and when they finally arrive here, to feel like at home, and there's really not being an inconvenience, but for their benefits. And so far, the response has been great.
Good. So going, and this again for both of you here, regarding your meeting space and your capacities, this is actually a great question that someone asked here. Is you've got new guidelines in terms of your capacities of what you can do and what you can't do. Who came up with those? In other words, were those given down by the county of Orange County in Orlando, or the city of Austin? Like who, or was that a hotel decision, or did you take CDC guidelines? What and I guess Nenad, I'll start with you.
Great.
What was your plan around that?
Sure. So we had our guidelines that we developed on the corporate level for all the properties of Accor, us being one of them, in terms of spacing, in terms of distancing, both the spacing between each chair in a row and then the spacing of the rows. So we would take out every other row, basically, creating that additional distance to get our diagrams depending on the setup, right? But just this week, earlier this week, actually, a few days ago, officially, the state of Texas regulated the meetings, allowing the meetings to happen effective immediately. And the way that Governor Abbott put that through was at 50% of maximum occupancy. So just for the sake of the conversation, if your ballroom can seat 1,000 people, they're saying 500 is the maximum allowed, given that each attendee has a minimum 6 feet apart. So what we did is we took those numbers and then laid them over our existing diagrams to make sure that we're definitely not exceeding, but in many cases, ours are even more restrictive than even though technically I could go to full 50%, but we're spacing it out, probably to a lower number in many cases.
Right, and that's temporary. I mean, this is temporary as the phases extend on. Amanda, same scenario, kind of similar with yours?
Yes, similar scenario. Omni Hotels overall had a whole task force that was devoted just to developing these new capacity charts. So I had opportunity to work with some of them, and we worked on, again, creating diagrams, seeing what it was actually going to look like in the room and what made sense. So that was kind of the baseline to start out with these charts. But then ultimately, of course, we have to follow whatever guidelines are in that specific county or in that specific state. So in Florida, we're actually today in phase 2 for the first time. So very excited about that. And a part of phase 2 is that venues like ours can operate again at that 50% capacity. So we're kind of in line with where they're at Austin.
Yeah. I saw a question come in around food, and I had my own question around food. But all of these social distance, and this is, again, Jill will tell you, the goal of this webcast is we want to get granular, the grit, and it's not all pretty, the planning side of this, right? I mean, this is painstaking to come up with these capacities, to make these changes, to take temperatures, to manage elevators, right? So when we get to the food handling specifically, like that's a labor cost. That's an increased labor cost for the hotel. So if I'm a meeting planner or a meeting owner, are those costs passed over to me, or should I expect pricing changes to be reflective of these increased costs from your side? Amanda, I'll start with you.
As a brand, Omni is not passing on those costs right now. So, we're providing those attendants for the buffets complimentary. We're not increasing the pricing. We have looked at some of our menus to make our menus more in line with the products that are readily available right now, as some of the supply chains have changed. But as far as the actual cost of the labor, we have not passed that on to our customers as of yet.
Okay. Nenad, anything around that?
Same here. Just like Amanda said, we're building those costs part of our operation for the ramp up, and idea is just that we offer more options on the menus, but build that cost of preparation part of course of reopening on our end.
Yeah. As far as capacities here, just total hotel capacity. So Nenad, you have, is it 1,000 rooms? Did I get that right? 1,000?
Just over, yes.
Right. And Amanda, you have
64.
I'm sorry?
864.
864. So there's a today and then there's a tomorrow. So today, what is your max capacity for a meeting that you could hold today? And then when do you see, and Nenad, I'll start with you here, when do you see that number increasing to what your typical kind of group max is for that?
Well, I think we're currently limited on the as long as the norm is to remain 6 feet apart, and we will fully obviously follow those guidelines. Um, I think we're maxed out as is because I do anticipate both the city and the state here in Texas increasing the capacity from 50% to 75. I would hope sometime soon when deemed safe. But with the limitation of each attendee or person being 6 feet apart, we would have limitation to that, But right now, in our two largest ballrooms, we could safely, following our protocol, seat close to 500 in each. And the beautiful things, and I think Amanda just touched on that a few minutes ago, was with less, obviously, group business now, we have the ability to split it up. So a group that was assigned one ballroom, we can split it over two, even assign a third ballroom, and we can easily do a compound of 1,000 to 1,500 guests on site here between all the ballroom space we have available, not to mention the web component then as well that could easily grow to a couple of thousand, attending from home, right? We're using the technology.
And I think even Amanda, you mentioned in some information to me that one of the things you can do is have some number of attendees, in the ballroom where some are in their guest room and it's being streamed to their guest room and then it switches, so kind of a hybrid function within the hotel and then a hybrid function beyond the hotel.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at doing that. So to stream it to actually the televisions in the guest rooms for, it's actually for a dance program. And so they can watch their dancers, on stage without actually being in that ballroom. But we also have multiple virtual components where they can just stream on their devices as well. And as far as, our capacity, we're really blessed in that we have a really great rooms to space ratio to begin with, still being under that 1,000 room mark, but having 250,000 square feet of meeting space. Our largest ballroom is just under 30,000. So we could safely seat about 800 people in that ballroom as it is. So if I did, if I had single occupancy in every room, I really could kind of accommodate a full house group at this point. We don't have any in the next couple weeks here, so we're not really at that point yet. But by end of August, we do expect to see some groups of around that 500 mark.
Nice. So one of the questions, and we had talked about this, social distancing at weddings. If you're hosting, and I know you had a wedding of 20, and Nenad, you have one coming in this weekend. How do you handle social distancing at a wedding?
You can't kiss the bride or the groom, right?
They're still hugging. We'd be out, Harold. They'd throw us out.
Right.
So what we did with this last wedding was for the actual ceremony, looking at not only did they have assigned seats for the meal after, but for the ceremony they had assigned seats. So that way families could sit together. We had the right amount of seats together because there wasn't that many of them. It wasn't really cumbersome to do that, of course. And then we set families together for the dinner. I think the other, and with most weddings, that's pretty easy to accommodate within that, maybe 6 to 8 people per table. Make sure your tables are 6 feet apart. The dance floor is the other, area that just continues to come up because, people are people and they're going to be humans. And so, we've looked at increasing our dance floor sizes so that we're providing a certain, square footage, and as well as, placing signage to remind people about social distancing. But that's really a tough one that other than just, making sure we're providing that space, whether people follow and adhere to the distancing or not is kind of hard to say.
Humans will be humans.
Yeah. So, we've got a few minutes left here. So, Amanda, what are the conversations like we know what we're hearing at HPN, and we talk to our clients. Actually, for me, and probably, well, at least for me, one of the silver linings through COVID and what's going on is that I've gotten to engage a lot more with our clients that I normally may not do in a normal course of my day. So I'm hearing their feedback, what they're thinking, whether it's about postponing a meeting or about booking a future meeting. But you're dealing with your customers or your clients or meeting planners that have booked and already booked a meeting, and now we're in the pre-planning phase. How is that conversation? I mean, is there excitement that they can book? They can actually have this meeting? It's stressful as a meeting.
Maybe
planner.
trepidation, excitement.
I think the biggest message that I want them to know before they get to that point of thinking that, maybe we do need to postpone this or they're scared is just to reach out and say, hey, let's talk through this. How can we make this work? Because I know at our hotel, and I'm sure, many across the country, our goal is to make this work for them. So we're going to give them extra meeting space if we have it and it makes sense. So we're going to work with them and be flexible with them because we're all here to, get things back on track. So the more meetings we can successfully execute across any brand, the better off it is for all of us. So that's really my biggest, message to any customer is let's partner together to get this meeting off the ground and really exhaust every single option possible before we really get to the point where we have to think about postponing.
And I love that, Amanda. So many of the calls that Kirsten Perry on my team and I are doing, we did one yesterday. So hi to Cordice. I know she and Emma are watching today. I'm super excited to have them here. But it's really that information sharing that we're seeing from other clients. So before you just say the no or, we don't know what to do, there's so much information that we have because we have so many different clients and we're happy to consult and share that information. And you're right, as a whole, our industry will come back, when people have that confidence and just have those conversations about what we're seeing and what we can do versus just thinking, nope, it can't happen. So I love that approach.
Nenad here. This would be. I got a question for you specifically because again, you're a general manager. So, and me as a former director of sales, I used to sit in the revenue meetings with my general manager who used to attend. Right. So when we're talking to our clients, and we're talking about new business, whether it's in the year, for the year, 20 business or 21 and even beyond. We are seeing across this really everywhere that this is a buying opportunity of a lifetime, which again, it's a silver lining, call it what you want, but just for your specific hotel and your sales strategy, I mean, would you agree to that you think that pricing is that this is an opportunity to buy if you're a group planning a meeting?
I will agree with you, Harold. Yes, because it's simply just the law of demand and supply, and we have a lot more availability, right? So we can get as flexible as needed. I think part of the previous question we just talked about is the communication for those groups who do book or are already confirmed to come in the near future. These conversations are a lot more educational, and so much like the same way when we have these meetings here in the hotel with our sales team and the revenue team. It is all about the communication we have internally to pass that on to our client, to reassure them, to educate them. We're talking about the future of the pre-cons. How will those look like, right? And I think a lot of it going around the room, besides the introductions, will be just around these safety plans, at least in the near future. Educating the client and giving them the available information, their packets, that they can, where the nearest hospital is or 24-hour testing facility is. Those will become perhaps not a new norm, but certainly a norm to stay for a while. And those are all the things we talk about back in the house. But in terms of bookings, yes, I think the flexibility is far greater with more options available.
Yeah, I saw we had a deal earlier this week where a client was looking. They postponed their 20 meeting to 21. Okay, but at the same time, the client asked, and we actually asked the client and said, hey, what do you think about a future meeting opportunity? And they said, well, we consider it if the price was right. So our associate on our side at HPN went to the hotel and said, hey, all right, I know we're postponing from 20 to 21, but is there an opportunity to put together kind of the multi-year deal to book the additional year 22? And it was a deal of a lifetime. So Amanda, I know you're on the conference services side, the catering side, but are you hearing stories like that with Championsgate there?
Yes, absolutely. And I work very closely with our sales team. So we work together on a daily basis. That's absolutely true. Of any customer that unfortunately has had to postpone for whatever reason, we're not looking to just replace that meeting, we're always asking the questions of, okay, well, where's 22? Where's 23? Let's talk about the future. Let's make you a long-term customer, because that's what we love, to have long-term customers that come back every year, every other year, and they really just become a part of our Omni family. So that there are deals to be made when you're willing to sign that multi-year deal. Omni has a platform called Omnificent Meetings, which spans across not just Championsgate but all of our hotels, if you can place multiple years there.
Okay, good.
Hey,
Jill.
Hey, Harold.
I think we're at time here.
I think we're at time, and we just had a lot of great information. Talk about those nuggets. I think we got a few, and we covered a lot of questions today. So
and we had John from ECI on, and which is great. Maybe we get John to come back on a future webcast. Talk about ECI. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this out here. Listen, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us, and Nenad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both,
and to our attendees who are logged on here. Let's be safe, and let's get back to the business of meetings, and HPN Global is here to help. So thank you all. Have a safe weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Elle. Bye, all.